Hey guys, I'm Shan Shinsky and I'm here representing Group 3. We basically created a Washington State University database that can be utilized by the WSU distance track coaches to track and monitor the performances of the runners at certain meets, and it really captures a lot of information about the runners and things like that. So here's a basic outline of what we'll be going over today. So first we'll be talking about the needs not only of the coaches but also of the system. We have many performance facts that we want to talk about. Next I'll be talking about the measures and dimensions of our database, and then moving on to talk about the specific scheme of our database, exactly what goes into each table and things like that, how everything's connected through this central table. Next we'll be looking at the cube structure and examples of certain things that you can really find out from our cube. And then I'll be talking about key performance indicators and then wrapping everything up with the conclusion. So first, the problem. Washington State University contacted us to create a business intelligence system that coaches could really utilize as a way to track, monitor, and analyze individual performance of runners on their track and distance team. We thought that this was a really useful system because it's a great way to really monitor your runners in an efficient way. Before this database, they were using paper methods and things that really weren't effective. It was really easy for information or data to get lost, or it's hard to read, or things get miscommunicated. So having this main database that can be implemented on a tablet or on any computer would be really important for Washington State University as a whole, and it can really help runners improve their performances and really good to compare data. So the decision maker had a lot of needs with our performance or with our database. The decision maker is, like I said before, Washington State long distance track coaches, and then this could also be assistant coaches, personal trainers, athletic trainers, anyone that really had the authorization to not only view runners' records, but also analyze it and get a lot of information from it as well. The needs were to track and evaluate runners' performance. This can be the time taken or the distance ran in events. Both of these are very critical information that we really want to track within our system. We can also view the runner participation in certain events, and then we have calculated measures in our system as well that can calculate runners' average performance rates and calculate total distance ran. I'll be going into more detail about this in a little bit, but that's just an introduction to what we really want to capture with our system and why we think it's really important that these specific measures are met. So we have one fact table. It's called the performance fact table, and this really captures all the information needed about a specific runner at a certain event. This is kind of the central of our database because it contains a lot of the information, most of the information that you really want. We have a grain for our performance fact table. It is a record of a runner performing in an event by the time taken, distance ran, performance type, location, and date. So all of these facts are going to be located on our fact table. And then from this fact table, you can drill down into more details, different hierarchies, things like that. I'll be going into a little more detail about this later. And we have specific figures and diagrams to show you guys about this performance fact table that we'll be going into a little bit later. So looking more closely at the performance fact, we have measures on it. We have 5 in total. 2 of them are just straight facts. The rest of the 3 we were able to calculate and derive from other aspects of our database. So first, looking at the fact measures, the 2 are time and distance. Length is length of the performance, and then distance is distance of performance. Now, it's really important to note that the time will always be in minutes and seconds, and the distance is always going to be in kilometers. Now, we really wanted to emphasize this because we thought that this stressed the fact that there's a lot of consistency in our database. We don't want any skewed information or any data that doesn't correlate with one another. Everything's going to be really consistent across the board, and just to ensure that we have a more efficient system for users to utilize. We also have 3 calculated measures. These were derived from other aspects of our database. and we were able to calculate them into new measures that we also thought were really important. Now, the rate is distance over time of the performance. So this takes the total distance ran and just divides it by the time to get an average rate. Count is total participations by runners. So every time a runner participates in an event, this just increments by 1. And you can see, I guess, who participates the most in certain events, and then who's participating the least. And there is going to be a direct correlation for this, and then how well they do. So we really thought that this was a really great measure to grasp in our system. And then the next one is total distance, and again, this just accumulates in kilometers how much your runners have ran in total. So now that we know the measures of our system, we can now move on to look at the dimensions. We are going to have 4 dimensions in total: performance, location, runner, and time. Now, time's not listed here, but it's really important to note that the time dimension can be broken down into month, date, year, and then you can look at the date in whole. So if you wanted to see how well your runners were doing in 2012 as compared to 2013, you'd have the ability to do that. If you wanted to look up a certain event, you could go through the date, find the specific event you want to look for, and analyze your records about that if you needed to. Next, looking at the performance fact, this will be broken down into a track meet or a track practice. So if you can see if your runners do better when it's a meet as compared to practice, you'd be able to have access to this data. Location can be broken down into city, state, and then specific location. So this would be like Newberry Track or the Kiwi Dome. It's the specific place in which your event took place. So you can see maybe if your runners do better home compared to away, this is really something that you'd be able to utilize with our system. And we thought that was really important to track as well. And then the last dimension is the runner. Now, by looking solely at the runner ID, you can break this down into runner gender, runner age, and things like that. So you can compare data of males to females, see if your younger runners do better than your older runners, things like that. Can be captured in our database and is really important to capture in our database, so that's why we added them. Now, here you see the scheme of our database, how everything's really interconnected with this performance fact table. You can see how everything is broken down, how everything has a relationship to one another. So here you see runner ID, gender ID, age ID, all connected on the DIM runner. DIM performance has the performance ID and the performance fact. And then the DIM location has the city and state broken down. Now moving on to look at our cube. This is one of the most important aspects of our business intelligence system because it's a great way to drill down information and really analyze the specific information that you want to look for. Now when you look at our table here, you can see that all of our dimensions are listed, and then above it we have our measure groups. So you can evaluate this based on distance, performance, fact, count, and time, as I mentioned earlier. And then if you want to specify the performance count in a certain city, you could do that by utilizing our cube as well. Here you see the specific examples of our cube. So on the one on the top left, you can really see that for this one, we had it by performance, performance rate, distance, and performance fact count. So we took one dimension and was able to apply it to all 3 of our measure groups. So you can really see here that how many people participated in meets, how many did practices, and then the rate at each of these, the performance rate at each of these. So obviously you can see that more distance was ran at practices compared to meets, and that's just really important data that we want to capture, good comparative data. Now on the bottom right, you can see that we did the same measurements based solely on the runner ID. So for example, on the top, you can see that Haley Gibson did 57 kilometers and ran 11 times. So that's pretty much what we wanted to outline with our database. And then this is just an example of the many combinations. This is just 2 of the many combinations that you could do with our cube. Next, we have many key performance indicators. You can see here that this is our calculation screen, how we calculated our KPIs. we thought that if you're doing a 0.26 performance rate, you'd be in the clear. So you can really compare your datas or your runners to this data and have a gauge set up or something like that. So you can really compare it, see how they're doing to this key performance indicator, and see how well they are doing, whether they're doing better than this or worse than this. It's a good analytical tool to compare it to this number that was formulated. So that's our business intelligence system. We thought it was a great way to really track what the coaches needed here at Washington State University and really benefit the track team as a whole.